as we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? We're here, folks, at the Capitol, protesting against this nonsense impeachment against our president. We stand up for the president and the rule of law. I'm Andy Meehan for Congress. Thanks for tuning in.
USA! USA! USA!
Where you folks from? Sorry, show me. Pennsylvania. Andy's running for Congress.
Yep.
Yale.
Yes, we are. Good to see you, everybody.
And now I'd like to bring up the founder of Women for Trump.
Check us out. We're going to bring the party back to the Republican
for America
Party.
First,
Yeah,
Amy
good.
Kramer.
Not only is he a financial leader, he's also a rock and roll.
Oh my gosh, all these deplorables, you showed up here today.
Showed up today. That's right. We showed up
At
today.
our house, the people's house, right?
That's right.
And it's time for Congress to start doing the business of the people and working for us again.
Oh, yeah.
We're tired of their witch hunts against this president. And I don't know about you, but this president has far exceeded my expectations. I believe, will go down as one of the greatest presidents in American history. And for no other reason than he has done what he said he's going to do. Imagine that. Promises made, promises kept. Look, if there's one thing Republicans should learn from President Trump, it's how to fight back.
Gotta fight back. That's right.
As
Nonsense.
I've traveled across the country, I hear women support this president more and more. And you ask them why, and they say because he's a fighter. He fights back. He doesn't tuck tail and run. He's not afraid of his own shadow. Absolutely. But you guys, I don't know about you, but I worry about my president because I know Hannity and Rush and everybody says, oh, he's strong, he thrives on this stuff, he's such a fighter, you don't have to worry about it. But the reality is, he's a human being just like you and I. And we all have a breaking point. This man does not have to do what he is doing. He could be living the luxurious life, traveling around the world, golfing, doing whatever he wants. But instead, he is in the swamp trying to drain the swamp. And they are fighting him with everything that they have.
Yeah, that's right.
Bring the swamp! 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 Bring the swamp!
Drain the swamp. That's exactly what he's trying to do. So I wanted to come here to show our president that he is not alone. Please, Mr. President, do not back down. Stand strong. We have your back. We are with you, and we are not going to allow the Democrats to repeat our road.
Did you hear that? Did you hear it?
So I have the honor of bringing up someone today that I have got to know over the past couple of years. He's a former Navy SEAL. You sometimes hear him fill in for Sean Hannity. And he's the author of the book Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness survival. Jonathan Gilliam.
Thank you very much. If you take pictures, please tag me on whatever social media you're going to put it on. I want to talk to you about three things. First, I want to talk to you about the reality of what's going on here. Now, I've had experience in the federal government in many different platforms. I've worked for 4 different agencies. What you're seeing right now, you keep hearing the deep state. Let me just break it down for you, the reality of what this is. This is a family tree that was planted years ago. This family tree has limbs that exist in media, in special interests and activists, in this building right here. But what we don't realize is that it extends past actual government into the executive quarters and CEO offices of many, many big companies around this country. You are forced to think and act a certain way, otherwise, and support certain people, otherwise you won't get the things that you need. You will be called a racist. You will be called an Islamophobic because you have an opinion. Not because you're a racist or an Islamophobic or that you hate anyone. You have an opinion. Now here's what I challenge you all to do. Let me talk real quick about your individual calling as free people. What you should feel as a calling. When the left sees something on Twitter that they don't like, they will amass 10,000 people to make comments. Many of those people in high offices in media and sometimes in politics to come after people. Very organized. If they say something that we don't agree with, there's maybe, 100 comments at the most. The same thing exists with events like this. We should have 10,000 people here today. But we always have that excuse that we have to work. Conservatives work. Well, let me key you in on something. Liberals work too. But they show up when their special interest or that thing that they stand with calls them. And they stand together. Conservatives don't really do that. And here I want to challenge you to stop even using that word conservative. You're a constitutionalist. Right. That is your cause.
That's right. That's our
Your cause is the Constitution. Without the Constitution, you won't be free. Without the Constitution, you won't be able to arm yourself and protect yourself from a potential tyrannical government. Without the Constitution, you will not be free. That is your cause. Now, I want you to think about this. God created you and He wanted you to be free. Why? Because if you're oppressed and you're made to think a certain way, you will never see Him clearly. And that's what this ultimately comes down to. Your relationship with God. If you are not free, you are not free to have a relationship with Him. Now, here's one more thing I want to say before I have to get off here. An individual can make a difference in the world. Donald Trump has shown that for sure. But individuals that stand together can do amazing things. Over 240 years ago, some individuals got together and founded this country. And what they did at that moment in time set the future in place for the next 244 roughly years. What you do today is going to set the future for the next 240 years, the next 500 years. If you all don't stand together and start standing together and going out and having dialogue and convincing people that you can take off from work, it is okay to take your kids out of school to go stand for the Constitution. If you all don't start doing that, the reality is in 240 years, the Constitution will not exist in its form that we see it today. So I just want to do something real quick. This is a real quick exercise. I'm a former SEAL. We have to do some kind of exercise. So what I want is everybody that is right here, I want everybody to put their hands on the person to their left and to their right. And I want you to make this happen as fast as possible. Right? It's okay if, you know, we're all here together. Now, I want you to think about something. If you guys were just standing here alone, or one individual, and I had a beef with you, or I have a beef with that person, or with that flag, I can run at it and I can get it. Trust me, I'm trained to do that. But I don't care who the warrior is, or what they're fighting, or who the criminal is, and what they're telling people. If you just do this, what you're doing right now, I can't make it to that flag. I don't even care if I'm fully armed. Eventually, if you have freedom in your eyes, you will stop me from making it to that flag. And the same thing can be said about the Constitution. If you stand together like you're standing right now, they will not be able to injure this Constitution any further, and this president will get reelected in 2020. But you cannot just think that it's going to happen. One last thing, the deep state, I call on Bill Barr to stop this charade of these reports and looking at one person and looking at another. If I took 5, 10, or 20 people out of this crowd and we conspired to overthrow the president or an election, do you know what would happen? We would be looked at as a conspiracy, and we would be tried as conspirators. They wouldn't write a report about you. They wouldn't write a report about me. They would do an investigation through the FBI, and they would take down that conspiratorial element. That is what needs to happen. No more of this special treatment.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Donald Trump has made this country great again, but you all will make it powerful again. I'm Jonathan Gillum. Wherever you see this face or hear this voice, remember, the truth has arrived. Peace.
You guys, so I gotta tell you something. I've never done an event at the Capitol where you didn't have a number of congressmen and women standing here wanting to speak. They all show up. This week, though, exactly where are they? They've been on recess, and then on Monday it was a holiday, so they've had a very short week. So there were very few of them that would come out today and speak to you. We're actually waiting on Congressman Steve Scalise, who is part of leadership. And Congressman John Rutherford from Florida is going to be here, as well as Congressman Doug Collins. But they're not here right now, so when they get here, we will of course bring them up and they will speak, and then they'll get on to their business, because you know they're holding all these secret hearings or depositions, they're calling them, whatever they're doing to try to frame our president. But right now, I want to bring up somebody that has been a good friend, and you guys probably know him. We see him on One American News, and I'm calling him up out of order. So Jack Posobiec.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, and I appreciate it. Any One American News fans out in the audience? All right. Are there any, and I can't see too well from up here, my eyes get a little blurred. Are there any Trump supporters in the audience? All right. I guess that. I want, before we got started, I would like to take a moment, though. I would like to take a moment because we did have an American leader who passed away just last night, and he may not have been someone who was on our side, but he was a fellow American, and as a fellow American, he deserves a moment of our respect. Wouldn't you agree with me? As a fellow American, can we take just one moment of silence for Congressman Elijah Cummings today? Thank you very much. Thank you. And see, isn't that what we want to get back to in this country? Don't we want to respect one another once again? Look, I'm sure everyone in this crowd who's wearing one of these MAGA hats or wearing a Trump hat has got someone in their lives, someone in their family that's just so nasty to them because of who you support in politics, because of your beliefs, because of your ideas, because of your opinions, right? You remember they had that Roseanne show? You remember when Roseanne came back on? And people said it was a pro-Trump show. You remember that? They said, "You guys watch Roseanne when it came back on?" And so they called it a pro-Trump show, but I actually disagree. I didn't think it was a pro-Trump show when it came back on, because what they did was they had Roseanne as a Trump supporter, but her sister was wearing the pink hat and was a member of the resistance. And you know what? They argued, they bickered, they fought, but they remained sisters. They remained family. And I keep thinking that when we see people pushing this impeachment based on, I don't even know what at this point. I've heard it was Russia, then it was Ukraine, and so I'm like, wait, but, for 3 years we were told it was Russia, and now it's collusion with Ukraine, but Ukraine and Russia are enemies, so why would you be colluding with the guy that the other one's the enemy of in the first place? It's ridiculous. You can't even follow it. You can't believe it. I'm a prior Navy intelligence officer, and I can't even follow this stuff. But I realized, though, that what there are people, and by the way, this is not just on the left, this is in the media, this is there are Republicans who play into this, there are Democrats who play into this, that they just want you fighting, they want you mad, they want you angry, they want you at each other's throats. And that's not right. And people, even in some cases, they're pushing for violence. They want violence, right? You get more clicks. You saw how they were with this Joker movie, right? CNN's waiting for, I hear the Joker movie is going to cause some violence. See if anything happens. It's a movie, okay? It's a movie, right? Right. And yeah, exactly. And they had a movie out there. They were going to have a movie out there from Hollywood, talking about hunting down and shooting Trump supporters. Right? It's ridiculous. No. And it's ridiculous because we don't want to live in that country. I don't want to live in that country. I don't want my son to grow up in that country. I don't want my family to be in that country. When we said "Make America Great Again," when Donald Trump said "Make America Great Again," he meant that for everyone, for all people. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your religion. It doesn't matter your ethnicity. But what do you have to lose, right? What do you have to lose? And so I was actually, believe it or not, I'll tell you a quick story about that. I'm on One American News right now, and I appreciate we have a lot of One American News supporters in the House. But actually, during 2016, they came to Philadelphia for the DNC. It was held. You remember that? It was held in Philadelphia. Hillary got her coronation. Bernie Sanders got the shaft, and so MSNBC came and did a panel. And they were doing a panel of local Trump supporters. And so I'm from Philadelphia. And so the local GOP said, hey, they reached out to me, Jack. They want to know, would you go on MSNBC? I said, sure, who's the host? They said, Joy Reid. I said, oh, this will be fun. So I go on there, and she says, and it was, sort of a mixed panel, both. Do I have a minute for a story? Do I have a minute for a quick story? And so she goes, she says, well, we had liberals, we had moderates, those quote unquote independents. But I got to tell you, right, and it's kind of an aside, I've never met anyone who's just on the fence in real life. You know that? You always see that in these polls, but I never meet anyone who's like, yeah, I don't know what I think about Donald Trump. It's like, no, I think people have pretty much made up their mind, like one way or the other. That's been 4 years, right? But anyway, this is in 2016, and then there were Trump supporters, and so she says to the Trump supporters in the crowd, when you hear "Make America Great Again," and this is the way they framed the question, I don't even understand it, but they said, what time period is that referring to? Is that referring to slavery? Is that referring to the Jim Crow era? And I'm sitting there like, that's where your mind goes to when you hear "great again"? Like you want to improve the country. Just the word itself, "great again." You're like talking about improvement, right? So that's progressive, improving, getting better. But she goes to slavery. And I said, how about World War II? How about the Civil Rights era? How about times that people from both sides of the aisle came together to fight the hard fights? To put differences aside and just be Americans and do the right thing. Oh, and I had a guy who was a Hillary supporter sitting next to me and saying, he's right actually about that. And then of course he shut us down because you can't have agreement. And that's how I learned. That's how I learned that they want that false dichotomy. So I would encourage everyone who's out here today that if you have someone in your lives that has stopped talking to you, if you have someone that is, if they were a friend you've had for years, if they're a family member, reach out to them. Just invite them for a cup of coffee or a cup of café maybe, and say, you know what? We may disagree on politics, but we ought to agree that we live in the greatest country in the world. We do, right? Objectively. And that this country is only going to get better because we work together to make it better.
That's right.
You agree? Thank you so much, folks. I appreciate that. Check us out on One America News. And I had just, and I'll truncate. You can zip all that and just it's.